It's kind of a question I often get asked, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really want to try and stimulate a few ideas, a little bit of awareness, and maybe try and lessen the stigma of disability a little bit, because it really doesn't have to change anything. You know, if we think of the word disabled in another context, it's so negative in its connotations, and I feel really passionately about this because, you know, we've all got something which we can't do. So does that make us all disabled? I think we really need to stop seeing disability as disability. You know, what even shapes the parameters, and how do we stretch those parameters if they're shaped too tightly? For me, I think with the right mentality and the right outlook, it can be a positive thing having a disability, like it has been for me, and a fantastic opportunity. But first, I guess I should probably throw a little disclaimer out there. I get that everyone has different limitations, everyone has different disabilities, and different insecurities even. It's all the same. I guess this is a certain way of thinking that really helps me, and these are my experiences, and this is what works for me. But I think it's taken a long time for me to get to this point. It's not always been the case. And I really think that everyone has the potential to find a positive headspace, no matter what the situation may be, no matter where that may be on the spectrum. The first thing that really works for me is acceptance, and really accepting who you are. And I think, if I think back to my younger days, like, my disability was something which was really such a massive insecurity of mine, and I really, really struggled to come to terms with it. You know, even going out in public, or you know, I really wanted to try and not use my crutches if possible, and in a way that kind of helped me, but also hindered me. But I definitely wouldn't have gone out in public in shorts, like, because I was really self-conscious of my legs. But these days, it's something which I can actively embrace and really be proud of, because my disability is something which, it makes me who I am, and I wouldn't be who I am without my disability. And, you know, I wouldn't be playing table tennis, and I definitely wouldn't be a Paralympian. So I'll touch on the mental side of things in a little bit, but I really think it's my very disability which makes me stronger, and I'm a much better person because of it. I've got friends as well who maybe suffered serious injuries, and they can no longer walk, they can't do the things that they used to do. And I genuinely forget that they're even disabled sometimes. It's no coincidence that some of the most strongest, most positive outlooks, and, you know, the people who've got the best, strongest mentalities in the world are some of those who've maybe undergone the most significant hardships or tragedies. It's not our struggles, but our response which really defines us. So I wouldn't change a thing, honestly. People ask me this all the time. I genuinely wouldn't change a thing. And another thing which helps me is trying not to compare myself to someone that I'm not. Like, I used to compare myself to my older brother a little bit, and he's able-bodied, he's a lot taller than me, he's probably stronger. Maybe not so much now, but back in the day, I really used to compare myself to him, and I used to imagine how good I'd be at table tennis if it wasn't for my disability. And it's fun to maybe think about, but at the end of the day, I think my disability has made me think quicker. It's made me use my brain to make up for my limitations. And it's certainly why I'm so passionate about exercise and fitness, to really kind of maximize my physical capabilities to make up for things. I think, you know, comparing yourself, it's maybe important to realize that sometimes, by all means, we can use it as motivation, but really try not to use it as a focus. Listen to your body and be grateful for what it can do. Be thankful and really focus on your strengths and get better at them. Let go of what you can't do and savor everything. I think this is the key point that I really try and keep at the forefront of my mind. Another thing which really, really helps me is having that goal or that target or that thing to really aim for, the thing that really motivates you. And I guess that will be different for everyone. But for me, if I look back, I broke my leg when I was 10 playing football, and looking back, that was a bit of a blessing in disguise, really, because it gave me something new to focus on, something new to kind of get better at. And for the first time, it gave me a real sense of purpose, especially with the Paralympics. And we don't always have to know or have that end goal in mind. Sometimes we don't know where that might go. So I mean, you don't have to see the whole staircase to be able to take the first step. And genuinely, like, I could not have imagined the experiences I've had when I first started playing table tennis, especially as a Paralympian. Small intermediary goals as well. I think when I first broke my leg, and obviously growing up with a disability, there was a point when I can genuinely remember all I wanted to be able to do was put my shoes and socks on by myself and maybe walk from one class to the next without needing a wheelchair. And I found this way of cycling as well, which was pretty cool, where I kind of kick the pedals back up to the top with my bad leg, which is this one, in case you didn't notice. But it's actually my favourite leg, so I think it's got way more character than this one, but oh well. Yeah, so I kicked the pedals back up to the top with this leg, and then I could push them back down with my less bad leg, shall we say. And I think when you've got a disability, you just really find ways to manage. You really, maybe you have to take certain different things into consideration. Your parameters are maybe altered a little bit, but your basic identity and your character really doesn't have to be affected at all. So with the goals, like, keeping them in mind, it really, really helps me. And I think, for me, what really, really motivates me these days has got nothing to do with table tennis, really. It's like I get a massive buzz out of pushing my body to its limits. And that's what I really want to talk about, because the sense of achievement I get from that is kind of incomparable. And it gives me such a kind of freedom of mind and such a positive state of mind, because it has nothing to do with results, whether I win or lose, competition, medals. And I think, exercise, table tennis, fitness, it kind of makes me feel less disabled. And that's probably the easiest way of explaining why I love it so much. And people ask me as well, how are you so mentally strong, and how do you exercise and push yourself through the pain of having a disability? And I think it's hard to kind of answer, because exercise I'm a big advocate of, and it really helps my disability, but I get that exercise can make you suffer, especially if you're going the ups and downs of having a disability. It can be tough, but I do definitely think that if you don't exercise, then maybe you suffer even more, and it's definitely important for my heart as well. I think the important thing is to really find an understanding of your own body and know your limits to the point where you can kind of find the right balance. And I think over the years, that's something which I've been able to do. I've kind of come to realize what is good pain and maybe what is bad pain. Pain that will maybe inhibit my joints and degrade my bones a little bit, compared to pain which is going to make me stronger at the end of the day. And which leads me on to, I guess, the photo here was with me on the bike. I think that's probably, I just want to touch on that, because that's probably my greatest kind of achievement, I guess, personally. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and therefore the best thing. But I cycled one-legged up Alpe d'Huez. So that's halfway up Alpe d'Huez, I think. And some of the toughest mountains in the Tour de France. And genuinely, obviously, there's a little bit of a grey area here with what is good pain and what is bad pain. And sometimes I probably push it a little bit too far. And this was definitely probably bad for my bones, let's be honest. But I think I've generally found in my life that the stronger I am, the fitter I am, the better the stability around my joints in the long run. And as a result, I've got far less pain than I ever used to. So yeah, I think sometimes you've just got to push yourself through the pain barrier, because my disability is far less limiting now than it ever used to be. And I could never have done that before. I think, the fact is, like, you never really know your limits until you've really tested them. And what I like is that it's got nothing to do with the body, absolutely nothing. It's like the mind drives everything. And in answer to the question that people ask me, I think the important thing is to really contextualize the pain and all the negativity that you're going to get, and find a way to keep going so that your body gets comfortable with what that actually is. You get comfortable with the discomfort. And for me, it's kind of become a little bit perversely enjoyable in a way. And that's what keeps me going, because I'm bettering myself, I'm getting stronger. So mental strength, I think, as a disabled person, I get a lot of confidence from this, in terms of it can even make it all the more rewarding sometimes when you have a disability, because I love this quote. It's the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. And you've kind of got an opportunity to have greater triumphs when you've got a disability. You're overcoming even more things, and I get a lot of confidence from that. But I guess it's important to realize that things are not always going to be easy, and it's very, very up and down. It's tough. Sometimes it might be frustrating and difficult living with a disability. And I think I'm going to get a little bit psychological now, so bear with me. It could be a little bit airy-fairy, but sometimes we go into defensive mode. Sometimes we kind of avoid things by way of coping, and maybe it's sometimes hard and it's easier not to do something than it is to do it. And we tell ourselves that it doesn't matter, but it does matter. And, these negative thoughts are completely normal. And that's something which really helps me, especially when I'm playing table tennis as well. That thoughts aren't facts. Sometimes we treat them as facts. Oh, I'm in pain, I'm struggling, I can't do this. This guy's better than me, I'm really nervous. Anything like that. And sometimes the harder you try and block these feelings out, the stronger they can become. And looking back to London 2012, I think this was a mistake that I definitely made. I was so nervous going into the tournament. I was a little bit injured as well, so that didn't help. But these were all unhelpful thoughts. Rather than thinking of them as being negative, they were just unhelpful, and they didn't help my performance at all. All the negativity spiraled to the point where I felt more pain and I felt even more disabled. So I think true mental strength, it's all about being able to think logically. It's not the absence of negative thoughts, it's being able to deal with them. And my way of doing this is all about recognizing when that happens and staying resilient so that I can remind myself. It's knowing that negative thoughts and pain can be there, but having the choice to not listen to them. And unfortunately, there's no on-off switch, really, but there is a way where we can massively turn down the volume. And this is what my getting into the zone looks like. It's kind of, there's not really anything such as the zone. It's just controlling everything which makes me come out of it. And that leads me on to probably my biggest buzzword, I guess. I think it's all about perspective. And I think that's the best thing about being disabled, about being a Paralympian. Just walking around the village is just awe-inspiring, and it's given me an extraordinary sense of perspective. And this is the same for any situation, any insecurity, I think, for me. Whether it's maybe I've got to go for an operation, maybe I'm preparing for a big match, or maybe I'm preparing for a TED Talk, for example. It's all the same. It's all about keeping perspective. And I think this little infographic here is something which really helps me. It's a little picture of the galaxy, which just helps me kind of keep into perspective the kind of insignificance of the situation I may be in. And it kind of helps me to depressurize everything, take a little step back, and it calms my nerves, and it makes me feel better when things maybe start to feel a little bit too heavy. Because right now, I guess, I'm preparing for Tokyo next year, and I mean, at the end of the day, all I'm doing is smacking a little white plastic ball back and forth over a net. It's not really, I mean, when you say, I think the most important thing is we don't have to depreciate the importance of what something means to us. We know it's important, but when we take a little step back, we find that, when we strip everything down, it doesn't seem so overbearing. We've still got family and friends at home. We've still got a lot of things that we care about who support us. And we kind of realize that there's a lot more to life than not being able to do something. And there's definitely a lot more to life than just having a disability. Thank you.